Learn to give thanks, brothers. It makes a tremendous difference. I'm thankful that when Annie and I got married, we had zero. When I say zero, I mean zero. There was nothing in my bank account, and we struggled. And so we learned to be thankful for little things. And I'm very thankful we started like that. Because I had quit my job to serve the Lord and I had given away all my money for God's work. But He didn't let us starve. He didn't let us beg. He never even allowed us to borrow. Little by little, we had the, inconvenience, let me say, of having to stay with my parents initially. More inconvenient for Annie than for me. But what to do? I said, Lord, I don't have any money. I can't rent a house. I wish I could, but I don't have it. But I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to join some Christian organization and preach to make money. I'll never in my life preach to make money. Never. And if you allow me to go through this struggle and a humiliation, it is a humiliation when you get married and you tell your wife, I'm sorry, I can't afford to rent a house. I've got to live with my parents. It's pretty humiliating for me as a man. And it was like that for 4 years. I said, fine, Lord, I'm willing to face this humiliation for your sake. Because I could have lived in a big house as a naval officer, but you told me to give it all up. I gave it up. But when I look back over it today, as I've often said, God was training me for something I never knew. I never knew in those days that you don't preach by Bible knowledge. I had a lot of Bible knowledge. And I was preaching. And the Lord taught me you have to be a forerunner, a mini forerunner. If Jesus had to be the forerunner, had to go through all temptations, tempted in all points as we are, to be our forerunner, you don't have to go through the whole lot. But for the ministry I have for you in the future, I have to take you some very difficult paths, which other people don't have to go through because they're not going to have such a ministry. I'm going to give you a big ministry. And that ministry, big ministry, means not to the big people in the world, to the poor people in Tamil Nadu, in the poorest villages in India. I realized it only 20 years later, that I go to those villages and some of those people are so poor. They live from hand to mouth. They don't have any savings. And they get married, they have to live with their parents or some part of their parents' house. I can go to them and say, I'm your forerunner. I lived like that for many years. I fully understand what you're going through, brother. Now, the rest of you don't and never did that because God never called you to that ministry. He hasn't called you to minister to the poor villagers in the poorest villages in Tamil Nadu, so you can rent a house and live from the day you're married, fine. But I was called in a different way. I don't envy you. Not at all. God bless you, brother. I was more passionate that I must fulfill the plan God had for my life before I was born. And I said, Lord, I'm willing to pay any price. And Annie said the same thing when she was converted. I'm willing to pay any price to follow the Lord. Otherwise, she wouldn't have married me. Who in the world will go and marry a man who's got no bank account and no salary? But God's been good to us. What I say is, we learned to give thanks when we had nothing. When I say nothing, literally nothing. In everything, give thanks. One advantage of being at the bottom, you know what it is? After that, the only way you can go is up. So from that bottom, God blessed us little by little by little. But it also brought into our hearts some tremendous compassion and understanding of the needs of poor people, even some very poor brothers who come to CFC, who are poor villagers whose parents have got nothing to give them, struggling to find a job, struggling to support themselves. I have tremendous compassion for every one of them, because I've gone that way myself. I know you have compassion, but I don't believe you can have as much as I have, because you never went that way yourself. You were well off from the day you got married, you had a job and everything else, and probably a good salary. So what I want to say is, learn to give thanks for everything. Don't complain. I remember the devil would tempt me in those days and say, see where you are. You could have been a big naval officer with a big house all to yourself in some naval base, and here you are struggling, not even a proper house to live in. And I would say, Lord, you called me, so I have no complaint. So I'm not going to yield to the devil's temptations. Do you ever yield to the devil's temptations to complain about something? Yeah, we've had our struggles also with our children. Many of them had some sicknesses when they were children. We had to take them for surgery, something or the other. Little things that all of us face. But I say, Lord, thank you. There's something in everything, there's something to give thanks. It could have been worse. Thank you, it's not so bad. Dear brothers and sisters, the way downwards is when you stop giving thanks. The way up is always giving thanks for everything, even if you can't understand it. Lord, there must be some reason why you're taking me through this. I've learned to say that from the time I understood God's ways. There must be some reason why you are taking me through this right now. And I want to give thanks. I may know it only 10 years from now or 20 years from now, but there must be some reason. Even when, if I carelessly lost a lot of money, I had to be very careful with money because I had so little. And once, when my father gave me some inheritance, I had to be very careful with it so that I could invest it and earn something from it. And I had to be very, very careful. And sometimes I lost, through carelessness, some large amount of money. I remember one instance where I lost a large amount of money because, not I was careless, but I couldn't do something in time to earn that money investment because I had gone for some meeting somewhere at that time. And by the time I came back 3 days later, the opportunity to make that investment was gone. I couldn't get it. And I lost thousands of rupees. And I said, Lord, thank you. Money doesn't mean everything to me. I lost a few thousands of rupees. It's okay. I will thank you because I did not go seeking my own. I went there to serve you. I went there to serve. And the Lord allowed me to lose this investment opportunity that I lost, that was only available during those 3 days when I was at meetings. And the Lord said, will you do that again if you have to go for meetings? I said, Lord, I'll do that 1,000,000 times. To go and serve you somewhere and I lose money, I'm willing to lose 100 times more than I lost here. I took that attitude. God's work is more important than anything I have. I'm willing to lose many thousands. I won't tell you exactly how much, but it was a huge amount of money, which I could not afford, thousands of rupees. And I said, Lord, I'm willing to lose it to serve you. Are you willing? How much do you love Jesus? But I'll tell you one thing. Till today, I have never starved. None of my children have starved. We always had 3 meals a day. I've never borrowed money. How many of you can say that? Never owed anybody even 1 rupee. God took care of me. Honor God, that's all I'm trying to say. I'm giving you my testimony only to teach you that if you honor God, He'll honor you. And you won't always know the result. Sometimes we will know the result only in eternity. But this particular event where I lost this money, 2 years later, I was at a conference, RCFC conference, and one brother got up and testified. He said, 2 years earlier, I was in such and such a place, and Brother Zach came to preach to us, and that was the place where I went. And I got converted there. I said, wow. The day I lost all this money, this one man got converted. What shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? One soul is worth more than the whole world. But the Lord did not allow me to know that till 2 years later, to see whether I would serve him, even if I lost, even if there's nothing gained. But the Lord comforted me 2 years later, saying, you did gain something. One eternal soul. That encouraged me so much, I've never forgotten it. I said, Lord, I'll only serve you all my life. Whatever the loss, whatever the sacrifice, I will never count in terms of money. I'll count in terms of eternal values. My brother, sister, God doesn't just pick up somebody and says, I'm going to use you. He tests him. Are you willing to sacrifice everything to serve me? And I believe that God has tested some of you and you have failed the test. That's why he could not use you. He could have used you much more for something that would last for all eternity. And now when I look back, what is that few thousands of rupees that I lost, and here all eternity I will rejoice to meet this one brother in heaven forever. How can I compare that with millions and millions of rupees on earth? Dear brothers and sisters, live with eternal values in mind always. This is eternal life, to know God and Jesus Christ whom he has sent. To know God as a compassionate, loving, merciful God who, if he takes you through a tough time, it's for your good. You may think he has left you. He hasn't. I remember the days, and all of you who have children also would know, have this experience. The first day we take our child to school, kindergarten. If the child doesn't know where he's going, you take him and leave him at the school, and he's wondering why your daddy's walking away or mommy's walking away. And cries, and you ignore his cries. Can you imagine such a heartless father and mother? Child is crying, and you just say goodbye and you go. Is it because you love the child? If you hate that child, you'll take that child back home and never allow him to get an education. You love that child, and that's why you allow that child to cry on the first day of school like anything. He may cry the second day, cry for a whole week. But you ask that child 20 years later what you did for him. God is like that. He leaves you somewhere and you cry and cry and cry. Why aren't you answering my prayer? Why aren't you doing it? And he leaves you. And when that happens in your life, brother, think of the day you took your child to kindergarten first day. And think what the result of that was. Say, thank you, Lord. You're allowing me to cry today, but I know there's something glorious for me in the future. He's a good God. I'll tell you, my brother, sister, after 64 years of knowing this wonderful God, I'll tell you with all my heart, he's a good God. He's a merciful, compassionate, kind